You want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it?
The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered. And this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't gonna be that fun. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Glad to have you with us today. Just a minute after the break, we're going to talk about some issues that are coming out that are really disturbing here in the last few days. Some poll numbers that came out that's showing young people's response to Hamas and Israel. And it really is beginning to show the effect of really social media that is not hinged to reality. And we're going to deal with that. And I think there's some room for discussion here. But the realities of some of this poll was pretty, I'll be honest, it's pretty startling to me to see just really in a matter of seemingly days, it seems like, but probably a number of years, how their education system and how social media influences have risen to the level of distortion in some of these actual world events, especially this deal, the dealings with Israel and Hamas as we go forward in the future. Also, criminal justice reform done wrong. Shockingly, the LA District Attorney, George Soros, DA, promoting someone who doesn't believe actually in law enforcement. We'll talk about that today. And also the military getting smaller as we speak. As someone who sees this, right up close and personal, I just wanted to touch base on this here. As we get ready, it's a week to get started, but here on Wednesday, we're going to get it going here right after the break.
Hey, folks, when you look out and you see the country and just the disarray it is, you see the Biden administration, you see the wholesale prices have just went through the roof again. Inflation is tearing us up. If you have your finances all impinged in just a few areas, if you're just in stocks and bonds and you're not diversified, I got some news for you. You need a navigator. You need somebody to help you get to where you need to go with those finances. And I can't think of anybody better to do that than my friends at Legacy Precious Metals. You need precious metals in that portfolio. You need gold and silver. And Legacy Precious Metals, the folks there, they're the navigators. They know how to deal with tough times. They know and how to look ahead and take your personal situation and make it something that can be workable for you in the long term, because that's at the end of the day, that's the one you're most concerned about. You need to make sure that your personal finances and your retirement are secure. You need folks like Legacy Precious Metals helping you in that. They will take the time to learn you. They'll learn your finances. They'll learn where your investment goals are, and they'll help you get there. And metals and gold right now in this kind of crazy inflation, in this kind of crazy economy with the Biden's economy is just, you need that help. And Legacy Precious Metals is the one to do that. So give Legacy Precious Metals a call, 866-528-1903, 866-528-1903, or you can always visit them online at legacypminvestments.com, and you can download their free investor's guide. Legacy Precious Metals, they're the ones you need. They're the navigators to help you through these turbulent times.
Hey everybody, it's MyPillow's 20th year anniversary, and over 80 million MyPillows have been sold. Mike Lindell and MyPillow wants to thank each of you and every one of you for giving you the lowest price in history on their MyPillows. You will receive a queen-size MyPillow for $19.98. Regular price is $69.98, and just $10 more for a king size. You will receive deep discounts on all MyPillow products, such as bed sheets, mattress toppers, pet beds, mattresses, my slippers, and so much more. This is a time to try out something other than the amazing products that you've had your eye on. Go to mypillow.com, click on the radio podcast square, and use the promo Collins, Collins, to receive this amazing offer on the queen size MyPillow for $19.98, or call 800-986-3994. This offer comes with a 10-year warranty and 60-day money-back guarantee. It's time to start getting the quality sleep you deserve. You know how I know that? Because I sleep on a MyPillow every night. Go to mypillow.com and use promo code Collins, Collins, or call 800-986-3994 today. All right, let's get started. I mentioned this after in the opening, and it really is disturbing. I'm just going to read some of this. This was actually out of a report from National Review, and it was on a survey that was done by Harvard Cap's Harris poll. Now, again, let's take it from where it's at here. Let's take it from the perspective of, Harvard caps the Harris poll. This is probably going to be skewed. In some ways, we understand that. But what stuck out to me, even in this poll, was 51% of 18 to 24-year-olds in the U.S. want Israel to lose to Hamas, and the sentiment decreases significantly among higher age brackets as you go accordingly. 31% among 25 to 34-year-olds, 24% 35 to 44, 15% of 45 to 54-year-old, 13% 55 to 64, and only 4% age 65 and older say Israel should be wiped out. In comparison, the overall 81% support for Israel over Hamas. However, support between the two sides is split evenly among the age 18 to 24 age bracket. Again, this is disturbing. I just want to get at this for a little bit as we look at it. So, although it's a slight majority of that age group, which is 18 to 24, support the genocide of Jews. Now, this is not 30s polling in Germany. This is today's polling of a segment of folks in the 18 to 24-year-old age range that basically say they support the genocide of Jews. 58% of the respondents say a slight majority said they support genocide, so a little over 50%. 58% of the respondents in the same age group say Hamas should be removed from running Gaza, which is, an interesting point here. The same group further displayed the contradicting views, with 60% saying Hamas's October 7th attack was genocidal and 60% answering that Israel's campaign in Gaza consists of genocide. The reason I'm bringing these numbers out, and I want to give you some more in this, is because it just shows, and even this article points this out in National Review, this very contradictory views. And this is where I'm very concerned about the future, not only in elections, but I'm concerned about where we're headed, really in many diplomatic situations, because what is normal, or at least reporting that we would see now, is being skewed in some ways to fit an agenda. We saw this, this anti-Semitic discussion in the Capitol Hill just in the last few weeks and we talked about this on one of the episodes just previously about the university presidents from Harvard, MIT, and Penn, one of which does no longer have her job. They basically couldn't just come out and say that the calling for the genocide of the Jews was hateful or against the code of conduct of these universities. This is harkening back to a very dark time. And what is really concerning here is that over time, you're seeing young people who, the same group, now I want you to think about this, the same group, 51% want Israel to lose to Hamas, which, number one, will never happen. Okay, again, I know I'm being picky here. I know I'm, actually being logical with numbers. Israel will not lose to Hamas. Now, it could last forever in a sense of just continuing on like we've seen for the past 20 years roughly in the guerrilla organization of Hamas, because they're not an organized in the way that most traditional armies are organized. They're not. They're organized as a guerrilla militia group. So in a different way, you could have two people stationed, and that is a significant guerrilla operation or insurgent operation against an even larger force, because they could, planning IEDs, they could do a lot of things to disrupt, although never win. This is the very thing we saw in Vietnam. It's the same thing that Russia encountered in Afghanistan. So again, this idea that Israel would lose this in some sort of a traditional sense is really, mind-blowing to me, that this generation would actually think that. They're thinking in terms that doesn't exist. It does go on to say, though, and it really concerns me in the sense that a slight majority of the respondents in this support the genocide of Jews. I mean, I'm sort of just stunned here at this. I'm not understanding how we've come this far with such a, quote, open-minded group of young people who support everything that really want to support the genocide of Jews, of Jewish people. Now, that is the exact feeling of Hamas and Hezbollah and other Iranian-backed groups, and Iran and others who don't believe that Israel has a right to exist at all. It is interesting to me that American young people, 18 to 24, more than half would support the genocide of Jews. It's no wonder Jewish students on these college campuses are feeling so threatened at this point. We've seen this happen over and over again. Anti-Semitism is on the rise compared to any other discriminatory behavior that we're seeing. The Jewish discrimination is high, and it just gets ignored. Just frankly gets ignored by many in the press. And even the Democrats, which many of these young people are leaning toward, are leaning more toward the terrorist organization Hamas, in a sense, in what they're doing, as opposed to Israel, who is our strongest democratic ally. Now, I will put in a stopgap, if you would, however you want to put it. Is there room for discussion on how much Israel can actually take out at Hamas and at the cost of what is a very brutal civilian casualty loss and a door-to-door foundation? Yes, that there is a discussion to be had there. But at the same point in time, Israel is the one that has endured for years upon years of being attacked, being killed, having its citizens living in daily threat of missiles and bombs and mortars being lobbed at them on a regular basis out of Gaza from Hamas. There's the tunnels. We see all of this going on. So again, the viewpoint that Israel has had enough, and especially after the October 7th massacre, that they're going in and trying their best to weed out Hamas is understandable. It is a difficult situation. It is in a very urban environment in which you can't tell the enemy from the populace. This is, again, another tactic of what we'll call insurgent warfare. You see this and I've already mentioned countries that you see it in all the time. You have Yemen, who is barely able to feed itself, is able to take Iranian-backed military equipment and run drones and ICBMs and others that they're firing not only at Israel and southern Israel, but they're also firing in and around United Kingdom and United States naval vessels. They're obtaining ships, they're hijacking ships, they're holding them for ransom. This is not a good situation here. And Israel has been involved in this now ever since its inception with people who do not believe it should have the right to exist. But going further, here's the point that is really interesting to me, is that, again, these same groups said that the 66% said that Hamas attack was genocidal, and 60% answered that Israel's campaign was also genocide. I think we're throwing around the word genocide around here a little bit too much. And again, as I said just a moment ago, you can have disagreements as to maybe the tactics and where we're going. I'm still wondering why Israel is allowing the Hamas leadership to sit in luxury in Qatar and actually still direct so much of this that is inflicting pain upon the people who live in Gaza, the Palestinians in Gaza, who elected Hamas to supposedly take care of them, which they have not done, which we have seen them use humanitarian aid and hijack humanitarian aid for their own benefits. We've seen pictures of this just in the last couple of weeks of humanitarian aid coming in which you have Hamas gunmen sitting on top of the aid trucks. Anybody out there think this is actually going to the people is they're not dealing in reality. So I think this concern leads more and more to me that the misconception of what's going on in the Middle East and the poor educational system, it seeming like, of education in world affairs is coming home to roost for us. Additionally, this poll goes on to say 32% of young Americans want Israel and Palestine to be recognized in a two-state solution. Okay, that is a offer. I mean, that's something that's been discussed for many years. The question is a two-state solution will work if both sides are peaceful. And again, we're not even close to that there. And yet 32% who just said, over half have said in that same age group said that they wanted the genocide, supported genocide, support the genocide of Jews, are now saying they want Israel and Palestine to live together. I again, don't understand this kind of thinking as we look at it here. 17% think that Arab states should absorb the Palestinians displaced for the conflict. That's something that's been said for many years. It should tell you something that they don't. But again, not looking at this as we go forward. I point this out because this is becoming more and more of an issue as we go forward and looking at how this conflict in Israel and with Hamas is playing out on social media. And if you go and you look at a lot of the video that's being shot, some investigative reporters going into the protests that are being had, pro-Hamas protesters, pro-Palestinian, however they want to claim themselves, in certain cities, especially New York and Chicago, all over, without having a basic understanding of the situation as it currently exists. And again, this is where you get into major disagreements. You get into distorted arguments and people taking sides on things that they're not actually, I guess the best way is educated in. And so I point this out to say this is something that we'll probably talk about more on the podcast as the months and time go by. But the idea that you have this group of people who have very little understanding of what's going on in there are claiming things that are, one, virtually anti-Semitic, also giving contradictory ideas, should lead us to this understanding that at a certain point in time, how we disseminate news, how we look at this, how the people get information now in a social media format. I was just decrying the fact and the loss of our, weekly newspapers here in the Georgia. We had a daily here in my hometown that's now, I think, 2 days a week at best. And if you look at it, it's probably filled with more stories that, are either just reprints from other places. So we don't really get the long form, journalism that we used to get here in in our small towns, and it's happening all over the country. So people are more and more turning to Twitter and TikTok and Instagram and others for their news sources, Facebook. And again, folks, I am all for free speech. I am all for doing it. I mean, go spout off whatever you want to spout. But when people are believing what they're seeing from someone who may or may not have any knowledge of what's going on, except to push a political agenda, or maybe even not even be a person, be a bot that is pushing a political agenda, this is what you get. And you get over half of these young people who believe that genocide of Jews is okay. I leave it at that. This is just amazing. Moving on to another story that is not all that surprising, but is something that we're going to have to look at as we go forward here. Is we've talked about a lot about the George Soros DAs, the LA DA Gascon, very much was supported by George Soros. He is a terrible district attorney who has absolutely no idea how to prosecute prosecute the law and basically be on the side of public safety. I say this in the sense as someone who has spent most of my, especially political life, in the advocacy of proper criminal justice reform. And I even hate to say criminal justice reform, but actually upholding the law, holding accountable, and finding better ways to make sure that we have people who commit crimes that then can get back into society and produce at a functioning level and not have to go back to jail. That should be our goal. There are going to be some people who, frankly, need to go to jail and need to stay there because they have no idea how to function in a normal society, and the crimes that they have committed are heinous enough in which they have separated themselves basically from society, made the choice, as the old, the political science term, social contract. They have broken that, and now they need to live their life out in jail. That's their choice. It's what they did. Okay. However, what we're seeing now in LA and some of these other counties is the promotion of prosecutorial practices in a DA's office. Think about this. If you're a police officer on the street, you're out there and you're trying to help people who call for help. So your business has been robbed, someone in your family's been assaulted, raped, they're stealing product off your shelves, and you call the police. The police come out there at their own risk in their own life because, frankly, the job is dangerous. And they come, they arrest somebody, they send them to jail, they take them to jail, the jail releases them, the DA doesn't prosecute them, or the DA simply turns a blind eye. How would you feel if you're a police officer trying to enforce the law that way. You wouldn't. That's why we have so many problems with our law enforcement officers right now and others who are not able to stay in the job or want to stay in the job. Well, the LA district attorney, who I was hoping they would have recalled, they did not, has decided to promote a looter to chief of staff. This is the same person who wants to abolish prisons, who wants to defund barbarian police, back the ransacking of shops during the 2020 BLM riots. She's a self-professed looter herself. I wish I didn't have to go through this, because this is the very things that takes those of us who are trying to make things better, to get help to those who are addicted, those who have mental health issues, those who have committed crimes maybe when they were younger, or they were under addiction, they had issues in their life, to get them help they needed. This is the kind of thing that destroys it for everyone. This is sort of, like the old saying, this is why you can't have nice things, because you have idiots like this. I mean, this is someone who has been promoted by Gascon. She's a former public defender, regularly speaks of her support of defunding the police, referring to the LAPD as barbarians and claiming they're an occupying army. This is coming from the same person who will now be chief of staff. Tiffany Blacknell is the chief of staff in this. This is the office that is supposed to prosecute crimes arrested by the LAPD. If you believe them to be the enemy, if you believe them to be an occupying force, how are you actually going to prosecute crimes? How are you going to be fair to the people of Los Angeles County? I mean, this is the same anti-police activist who's posed wearing T-shirts with saying statements like, the police are trained to kill us, they can't kill us all, and selfies taken for social media. The proud she's an LA native in 2020 Facebook, to being part of the riots in 1992 against police brutality. She said, I was a looter then. I'm not sure what she actually accomplished by being a looter in that time. Again, it is amazing to me where you loot the very areas in which the people you supposedly are trying to help live. I don't... I don't get this. Prisons are obsolete. We need to reimagine America without it. Her career is riddled, there's been controversy. 2020 incident in which she went behind the backs of prosecutors and victim family in a gang murder case to negotiate a sweetheart plea deal with the defendant. Gascon, we don't get this. And at this point, in May, this is a story out of the Daily Mail, it was reported that Gascon is accused of letting 10,000 cases pile up, driving scores of prosecutors to quit, and the city of Los Angeles developing a reputation for soaring crime, and their people are terrified. And this is exactly what is happening. You had a chance to get rid of this guy. I don't know why you didn't. And if you didn't get rid of him, then basically you're getting what you asked for. But the reason I bring this story up today is, number one, yes, there are prosecutors out there who are not prosecuting law. That's their very job. It's like a baker who doesn't bake. It's like a barbecue place that doesn't serve barbecue. It's like a fireman who doesn't put out fires. It's like, I keep going as far as you want to here. This is a just absolute abysmal use of taxpayer funds, and that are not being used to protect the citizens, and yet they keep on doing it. And yet this idiot promotes someone who has trashed the very people she is supposed to serve. Again, I go back, if you don't understand this, go back and simply watch the episode of Law and Order. It starts off, the police who arrest and the district attorneys who prosecute. This is the way it's supposed to work. I don't know what kind of lifestyle. I guess they enjoy living in a city that is unsafe. I mean, that's the only thing you can assess here, because they're not making it safer. And we see it getting worse and worse and worse. So as we go through this, this process, for those of us who really believe that the criminal justice reform ought to be taking place, that there should be conservatives and liberals, everybody in between should be looking for ways to help people get jobs, to get them back on the street, to get them back in their life after they've held accountable for the actions that they did. We can't just ignore accountability. Otherwise, people just keep doing it. There's no reason to change. This is where we're at, 2023. LA's district attorney openly not wanting to prosecute the law. Last thing we'll touch on today on this episode is I've mentioned this before, and it just deserves mentioning again. Military going into 2024 is U.S. will field the smallest fighting force since before World War II. Military recruitment is down, as we've talked about. Army, Navy, Air Force missed their 2023 recruitment goals by a combined 41,000 personnel. The annual defense authorization bill passed by Congress just this past week stated the active duty troops will drop to 1,284,000 in fiscal 24, which is down 64,000 troops over the past 3 years, giving the U.S. military the smallest force since 1940. The numbers underestimate the challenge before services in strength in recent years, in part because of the difficult recruiting environment. They've actually lowered in strength numbers to make it not look as bad. We need a larger force. This is just something that's really concerning. And, the armed forces have now went away from it being something you strive for. So I remember growing up, the ads, and I've been in the military Air Force for 22 years. I was in the Navy for a little over 2.5, 3 years. And you went in it because it was a thing of service. You went into it because you wanted to be there. You went into it because you wanted to serve your country. And some of the branches now have gone just to lower levels. You have the Navy actively recruiting drag queens. You have the Air Force, my own Air Force, decreasing weight standards. None of it helped. The strategy didn't work. In fact, if anything, it actually hurt. Where you get most of your soldiers, most of your airmen, most of your sailors and seamen are from many times more rural areas, more conservative areas, or inner city, where this is not what is attracting them to the service. And yet this is the continuation. Folks, this is a problem. I'm going to mark it down here. As someone who actually sees this, actually deals with it, you need to understand that if we do not enforce that serving is honorable, that serving is good, and they trust the leadership, and we've gone through a lot of different reasons without specifically going into them right now over the past few years, from wars to everything else, from policies and from the COVID epidemic and everything else. There are a lot of reasons why members who were in are getting out, and that's another issue we haven't even talked about how many are getting out, not just staying and then trying to come in. But if we don't look at this is going to be a problem, because the world is not getting any safer. The world is getting worse. And if we don't have the population in our military services to fulfill those obligations, then we will be hurting even further. I've seen this coming for a long time, even going back to the Iraq-Afghanistan wars. When I was in Iraq, you had, again, less than 2% of the United States actually participated firsthand in Iraq or Afghanistan. Think about that for a second. That smaller percentage was being resent to these war zones over and over and over again. It's no doubt that the burnout factors and the desire to get out is very heavy. And yet now we have military members, families who have served in the military for years, who are telling their sons and daughters not to get in. Folks, I believe in this country. I believe in our military. I believe that the security of our nation is first and foremost. And yes, we have a responsibility around the world to be prudent and resourceful with the best military that we have. And I do believe we have the best military in the world. Others are trying to catch up. They're not there yet. They still got a ways to go. But if we don't properly use our military, and if we don't properly take care of our military, and if we don't properly do things that keep people there, then we will continue to fall behind, and that will have long-term consequences for us as we go forward. So with that, that's a catch up on the news. Not the best, not the happy today. I look for soft stuff and say, hey, let's be happy about it. But between Congress can't get anything done on immigration, we're trying to send billions across seas. These are things, though, that needed to be talked about. I want you to understand the dangers of misinformation going on in the world. You're seeing criminal justice reform done wrong, and you're seeing our military drained. these are things in 2024, hopefully in this presidential election, that we will start seeing addressed as we go forward. With that, we'll be gone. We'll see you on Friday. This is, we're always glad to have you with us there on the podcast. Hit the subscribe button, share this podcast with those that you know. Keep up to date. We'll always give it to you straight right here on the Doug Collins Podcast.